The orbital station, Nexus 7, floated like a silver jewel against the backdrop of countless stars. Ships from dozens of species docked at its numerous bays, their crews mingling in the vast commercial sectors. The station served as neutral ground, a trading post where the galaxy's most powerful civilizations conducted business far from their home worlds. Zara Lynn of the Ethereal Dominion stood at the observation deck, her luminescent blue skin shimmering in the artificial light. At barely 30 cycles old, she was considered young among her people, though her species aged differently than most. Her kind, the Ethmari, were born among the stars themselves, drawing energy from cosmic radiation and living for millennia. They were tall, graceful beings, with an innate understanding of space and energy that made them natural navigators and engineers. As the daughter of High Admiral Veltar, one of the Dominion's most respected military leaders, Zara had grown up surrounded by power and privilege. Her people commanded respect throughout the galaxy. Their technology was advanced beyond most species' understanding. Their ships could travel faster than light with ease, and their warriors were feared in battle. The Ethmari saw themselves as the rightful leaders of galactic civilization. Yet despite all her advantages, Zara felt restless. She had completed her advanced studies in stellar engineering and quantum mechanics with perfect scores. She could pilot any ship in the Dominion fleet and had already earned commendations for her tactical thinking during training exercises. But something was missing. Her life felt too easy, too predictable. That's when she saw him. The human sat alone at a small table in the station's lower cantina, a place most Ethmari would never visit. It catered to traders, mechanics, and other working-class beings. The lighting was dim, the air thick with the smell of various alien foods and industrial lubricants. It was exactly the kind of rough establishment that her father's security detail would never allow her to enter. But Zara had slipped away from her escort, disguising herself in common trader's clothes. She wanted to see how the other species really lived. Away from the formal diplomatic meetings and sterile conference rooms she was used to. The human looked old by his species' standards, perhaps 50 or 60 Earth years. His hair was gray at the temples, and deep lines marked his weathered face. He wore simple work clothes, a faded jacket over a plain shirt, sturdy boots that had seen many miles. Nothing about his appearance suggested wealth or importance. He was just another spacer trying to make a living in the vast galaxy. Yet something about him caught Zara's attention and held it. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, straight-backed despite his apparent age. Or perhaps it was how his eyes constantly moved, taking in everything around him with a sharp intelligence that seemed to miss nothing. Most humans she had met in diplomatic settings were either nervous around the Ethmari or trying too hard to impress them. This one seemed completely at ease, as if he belonged wherever he chose to be. Zara found herself walking toward his table before she consciously decided to move. Up close, she could see more details. His hands wrapped around a simple cup of what appeared to be earth coffee, and they were scarred and calloused from years of hard work. A small device on his wrist looked like a basic navigation computer, the kind freight pilots used. Everything about him suggested he was exactly what he appeared to be. A working-class human making his way through the galaxy. "Excuse me," Zara said, using the common galactic trade language rather than her own melodic tongue. "May I sit here?" The human looked up at her, and for a moment his eyes seemed to see right through her disguise. Then he smiled, a warm expression that transformed his weathered features. "Of course. Though I should warn you, this isn't the kind of place someone like you usually visits." Zara felt her cheeks flush with bioluminescent patterns that her people couldn't control when embarrassed. "Someone like me? Well-educated, clearly from money, probably never had to worry about where your next meal was coming from." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. But you're welcome all the same. I'm Marcus Chen, by the way. She settled into the chair, trying to process how he had seen through her disguise so easily. I'm Zara. And you're right, I suppose. I'm not used to places like this. Marcus took a sip of his coffee and studied her face. Running away from something? Or toward something? The question was so direct it caught Zara off guard. In her culture, conversations were formal affairs with complex social protocols. People didn't simply ask personal questions of strangers. Yet somehow, coming from this human, it didn't feel intrusive. It felt genuine. I'm not sure, she answered honestly. Maybe both. My life is very structured. Everything is planned out, predetermined. I wanted to see what it was like to just be somewhere without guards and protocols and people telling me what I should do. Marcus nodded as if this made perfect sense. Ah, the golden cage problem. I've known a few people with that burden, comfort and security in exchange for freedom. It's not that simple, Zara protested, then stopped herself. Why was she defending her situation to a stranger? Actually, maybe it is. I have everything I could want, but I feel like I'm watching my life from the outside instead of living it. What would living it look like to you? The question hung in the air between them. Zara had never really thought about it in concrete terms. She knew what she didn't want: more formal dinners with diplomats, more training exercises where the outcome was predetermined, more decisions made for her by well-meaning advisors. But what did she actually want? I want to see the galaxy as it really is, she said slowly, not through filtered reports or carefully arranged tours. I want to meet people who will tell me the truth instead of what they think I want to hear. I want to face real challenges where the outcome isn't guaranteed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then smiled again. That's a dangerous wish. You might get exactly what you're asking for. Something in his tone made Zara look at him more carefully. There was a depth to his words, as if he spoke from experience. You sound like you know something about dangerous wishes. I've made a few in my time. Most of them came true one way or another. He finished his coffee and stood up. But that's a story for another day. Right now I should get back to my ship. Cargo won't move itself. Zara felt a strange disappointment as he prepared to leave. She had only just met this human, but something about their conversation felt more real than any interaction she had had in months. What kind of cargo do you transport? Whatever needs moving from one place to another. Medical supplies, food shipments, sometimes passengers. Nothing glamorous, but it keeps me flying. Marcus paused, studying her face again. Though I get the feeling you're not really interested in freight manifests. He was right, of course. She wasn't interested in what he carried. She was interested in him, though she couldn't explain why. There was something about this ordinary human that drew her in, made her want to know more about his life among the stars. Could I see your ship sometime? She asked, then immediately felt foolish. I mean, if you don't mind. I've studied spacecraft design, but I've never seen a working freight vessel up close. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You study spacecraft design? Among other things. I have degrees in stellar engineering and quantum mechanics. Zara realized she was revealing more about herself than she had intended, but something about Marcus made her want to be honest. Impressive. And you want to see how the other half lives, is that it? There was no mockery in his voice, just curiosity. Zara nodded. Something like that. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. Docking Bay 47. The ship's called Wanderer. I'll be doing maintenance checks for the next few hours if you want to stop by. Before Zara could respond, he was walking away, leaving her sitting alone at the small table. She watched him go, noting again how he moved with a confident ease that seemed at odds with his simple appearance. Other patrons in the cantina stepped aside to let him pass, some nodding respectfully. For a simple freight pilot, he seemed to command a lot of respect. Zara sat there for another hour, nursing a cup of alien tea and thinking about their conversation. She had met thousands of people in her young life: diplomats, military officers, scientists, artists. Most of them had tried to impress her with their accomplishments or gain favor with her family. Marcus hadn't done either. He had simply talked to her like she was a person worth knowing, not a political connection to be cultivated. When she finally made her way to Docking Bay 47, Zara wasn't sure what to expect. Most freight ships were ugly, utilitarian vessels built for function over form. The Wanderer was different. It was sleek where it should be sleek and armored where it needed protection. The design was clearly human, but it incorporated elements she had never seen before. The hull plating showed signs of age and use, but every system looked perfectly maintained. She found Marcus in the engine bay, his jacket off and sleeves rolled up as he worked on what appeared to be a quantum drive coupling. His movements were precise and confident, the work of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "Impressive ship," Zara said by way of announcing her presence. Marcus looked up and smiled. "She's seen better days, but she's reliable. Want the tour?" For the next 2 hours, Marcus showed Zara through every compartment of the Wanderer. The ship was larger than she had first thought, with cargo bays that could be reconfigured for different types of freight, passenger cabins that were surprisingly comfortable, and a bridge that featured some of the most advanced navigation equipment she had ever seen. "This is military-grade hardware," Zara said, examining a tactical display that looked like it belonged on a warship rather than a freighter. Marcus paused in his explanation of the ship's defensive systems. "You know military equipment." "My family has connections to the Dominion Defense Force. I've spent time on warships." Zara ran her hand over the console, recognizing systems that cost more than some entire vessels. "This isn't standard civilian gear." "No, it's not," Marcus admitted. "I do some work for various governments from time to time. Dangerous routes sometimes require better protection." It was a reasonable explanation, but something in Marcus's tone suggested there was more to the story. Zara decided not to push, though her curiosity was growing stronger by the hour. As the tour concluded, they found themselves back in the ship's small galley. Marcus made fresh coffee while Zara looked out the viewport at the stars beyond the station. For someone who had been born among those stars, she felt like she was seeing them clearly for the first time. "Thank you for showing me your ship," she said. "It's beautiful, and very different from what I expected." "What did you expect?" Marcus asked, handing her a cup of the fragrant earth brew. "Something more basic, I suppose. Most freight vessels are built as cheaply as possible. This ship is clearly designed by someone who understands both engineering and combat tactics." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then sat down across from her. "You're very observant. Most people see what they expect to see. My people are natural engineers. We understand how things work, how they fit together. This ship tells a story about its owner." Zara met his eyes. "The question is, what story?" Before Marcus could answer, an alarm chimed softly throughout the ship. He immediately moved to a communication panel and activated it. A voice came through, speaking in rapid trade language, reporting a distress call from a passenger liner in a nearby system. Zara listened as the dispatcher explained the situation. The liner had suffered catastrophic engine failure and was drifting helplessly in space with over 300 passengers and crew aboard. Several ships had already responded, but they needed vessels capable of taking on refugees in case the worst happened. "Wanderer responding," Marcus said into the communicator. "ETA 4 hours. Preparing to take on passengers if needed." He ended the transmission and immediately began moving through the ship, checking systems and preparing for departure. Zara watched in amazement as the quiet freight pilot transformed into something else entirely. His movements became more purposeful. His voice took on an authoritative edge when he spoke to the station's traffic control, and his entire demeanor shifted from relaxed to focused. "I should go," Zara said, suddenly feeling like she was intruding on something important. Marcus paused in his preparations and looked at her. "Actually, if you meant what you said about wanting to see the real galaxy, you could stay. I could use an extra pair of hands, especially someone with your engineering background." The offer caught Zara completely off guard. "I couldn't. My security detail will be looking for me, and my father would..." "Would what? Be angry that his daughter helped save lives?" Marcus's expression was serious now, and she could see something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, something harder, more determined. "This is what the real galaxy looks like, Zara. People in trouble, others willing to help. No protocols, no politics, just beings doing what needs to be done." Zara felt her heart racing. Everything about her upbringing told her to return to the diplomatic section of the station, to let her security detail know where she was, to follow the proper procedures. But everything about her spirit wanted to stay, to see what Marcus was talking about, to finally do something that mattered. "What would I need to do?" she asked. Marcus smiled, and she saw approval in his expression. "Help me get this ship ready to take on refugees. Monitor our approach to the disabled liner. Use that engineering knowledge to help figure out what went wrong with their systems and whether we can fix it." "You think we can repair their engines?" "I think we can try. But first we need to get there." Marcus moved toward the bridge. "Are you in?" Zara took a deep breath and made a decision that would change her life forever. "I'm in." As the Wanderer undocked from Nexus 7 and jumped into hyperspace, Zara felt a thrill unlike anything she had ever experienced. For the first time in her life, she was truly free, flying toward danger with a human whose story she was only beginning to understand. She had no idea that Marcus Chen was about to reveal himself to be far more than a simple freight pilot, or that the disabled passenger liner was just the beginning of an adventure that would shake her understanding of humans and their place in the galaxy. In the hyperspace tunnel, surrounded by swirling colors and impossible geometries, Zara finally felt like she was living her own life instead of watching it happen to someone else. Whatever came next, she would face it alongside the mysterious human who had somehow seen through all her pretenses and offered her exactly what she had been searching for. The truth about Marcus would have to wait. Right now, there were lives to save, and Zara was finally ready to find out what she was really capable of when everything mattered. The passenger liner Celestial Dream hung dead in space, its once elegant hull now dark except for emergency lighting that flickered weakly along its length. The massive ship, designed to carry wealthy tourists on luxury cruises through the galaxy's most beautiful star systems, now looked like a wounded whale floating helplessly in the cosmic void. Zara stood on the Wanderer's bridge, her hands flying over the sensor controls as she gathered data about the disabled vessel. Her engineering training took over as she analyzed the readings, her earlier nervousness replaced by professional focus. "Both primary quantum drives are completely offline," she reported to Marcus, who was piloting their approach with steady precision. "Secondary power is failing, and I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in their core systems. Whatever happened, it wasn't just a simple mechanical failure." Marcus nodded grimly. His eyes focused on the tactical display that showed not just the disabled liner, but also the other rescue ships converging on the scene. 3 Vorthak heavy freighters had already taken positions near the Celestial Dream, their crews preparing to begin evacuation procedures. A Kalari medical ship was standing by to treat injured passengers. "Can you tell what caused the failure?" Marcus asked. Zara studied the sensor readings more carefully, her natural ability to understand energy patterns helping her see details that others might miss. "This doesn't look like an accident. The energy signature suggests the drives were overloaded deliberately. Someone sabotaged this ship." She expected Marcus to be surprised by this conclusion, but instead he simply nodded, as if confirming something he already suspected. Pirates? Maybe. But this is strange for a pirate attack. Usually, they would have disabled the ship's defenses and communications, then boarded to steal valuables. This looks more like someone wanted the ship to be stranded but not destroyed. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then activated the ship's long-range scanners. Zara watched in amazement as the display showed scanning capabilities she had never seen on a civilian vessel. The Wanderer's sensors were penetrating space in all directions, looking for threats that might be hiding in the asteroid field surrounding their position. "There," Marcus said quietly, highlighting a contact on the screen. "3 ships, powered down to minimal energy output, tucked behind those asteroids. They're trying to stay hidden." Zara looked at the scanner results and felt her blood run cold. "Those are Ravager-class ships, Scaran military raiders. What are they doing here?" The Scaran Coalition was one of the galaxy's most aggressive species, known for their brutal tactics and complete disregard for civilian lives. Their territory was far from this system, and their ships rarely ventured into neutral space except for specific military operations. Marcus's expression hardened, and Zara saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. It was cold, calculating, and utterly without fear. They're waiting for the rescue ships to lower their defenses. Once everyone is focused on evacuation, they'll attack, take the rescue vessels, and sell the passengers into slavery. "We have to warn the other ships," Zara said, moving toward the communications panel. Marcus caught her arm gently but firmly. "Not yet. If we broadcast a general warning, the Scarans will know we've spotted them and attack immediately. The rescue ships aren't armed for combat. They'll be slaughtered." Zara felt a moment of panic. "Then what do we do?" Marcus was silent for a long moment, studying the tactical situation. Zara could almost see him calculating odds, considering options, planning moves and counter-moves like a military strategist rather than a simple freight pilot. When he finally spoke, his voice carried an authority that made her instinctively want to follow his lead. "We're going to save those people, all of them. But first, I need to know if you trust me completely." The question caught Zara off guard. She had only known Marcus for a few hours, and despite her growing attraction to him, she realized she knew almost nothing about who he really was. Yet something in his manner, in the way he had handled every situation they had encountered, made her believe he was exactly the right person to be here in this moment. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I trust you." Marcus smiled, and for the first time since they had arrived at the scene, he looked genuinely pleased. "Good, because what happens next is going to be unlike anything you've experienced before." He began working at the bridge controls with movements that were too practiced, too precise for someone who supposedly just flew freight routes. Zara watched in growing amazement as systems came online that she hadn't even known the ship possessed. Weapons arrays unfolded from hidden compartments in the hull. Armor plating slid into place over critical areas. The ship's energy signature shifted as a military-grade power core activated. "Marcus," Zara said quietly, "what exactly is this ship?" "The Wanderer is a deep reconnaissance vessel, built by Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division," Marcus said without looking away from his controls. "She's designed to look like a civilian freighter while carrying enough firepower to take on a small fleet." Zara felt the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. "And you're not really a freight pilot?" "No. I'm Captain Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Force Special Operations, retired." Marcus glanced at her briefly. "Or I was retired until about 5 minutes ago." The transformation of both the ship and the man was complete now. The Wanderer hummed with barely contained power, its weapons systems charging and tactical computers calculating firing solutions. Marcus moved with the confidence of someone who had commanded warships in battle, his earlier relaxed demeanor replaced by focused intensity. "What's the plan?" Zara asked, trying to process the revelation that the mysterious human she had been attracted to was actually a legendary Earth military officer. First, we get close to the celestial dream under the pretense of beginning our evacuation run. The Scarens won't attack while we're docked because they don't want to risk damaging the ship they plan to capture. That gives us time to secretly transfer some of our military equipment to the liner and prepare the passengers for what's coming. Marcus brought up a schematic of the passenger ship on his screen. Then we position ourselves between the liner and the hidden raiders. When they attack, we'll be ready for them. Zara studied the tactical display. 3 Ravager-class ships against 1 modified freighter? Those are terrible odds. For them, maybe. Marcus's smile was cold and professional. Scarens are used to attacking helpless civilians or lightly armed merchant vessels. They've never faced a ship specifically designed to hunt raiders. As they approached the Celestial Dream, Marcus contacted the liner's captain and arranged to dock at one of the main passenger airlocks. To outside observers, they looked like just another rescue vessel preparing to take on refugees. Only Zara could see the subtle preparations Marcus was making for combat. "I need you to help coordinate the passenger transfer," Marcus told her as they prepared to dock. "Use your knowledge of alien physiology to determine who needs immediate medical attention. More importantly, I need you to identify anyone who might be able to help us fight." "Fight? Marcus, these are civilians. Tourists on a luxury cruise." "Some of them are. But ships like this also carry security personnel, off-duty military officers, maybe even some private contractors. We need every advantage we can get." The docking procedure was smooth, and soon they were aboard the Celestial Dream. The liner's interior was luxurious even in emergency lighting, with wide corridors decorated with art from across the galaxy and passenger suites that were larger than most people's homes. But now it was filled with frightened beings of dozens of species, all looking to the rescue teams for salvation. Zara found herself working alongside Marcus and the liner's crew to organize the evacuation. Her natural authority as an Ethmari, combined with her obvious knowledge and competence, made passengers trust her instantly. She moved through the crowds, using her species' natural empathy to calm fears while secretly identifying potential allies. She found them scattered throughout the ship. Commander Thex, a Vorthak military engineer who was traveling with his family. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a human surgeon who had served in the frontier wars. Kajathor, a Kalari security specialist who worked for one of the major mining corporations. None of them were combat soldiers, but all had experience with dangerous situations. While Zara gathered intelligence on potential defenders, Marcus was doing something that amazed her even more. He moved through the ship's engineering sections with a precision that suggested he had studied the schematics beforehand, installing devices that he had somehow brought from the Wanderer. When she asked him about it during a brief moment when they were alone, his explanation was matter-of-fact. "Emergency defense kits. We carry them for situations exactly like this one. Shield generators, portable weapons, communications jammers, standard special operations equipment." "How long have you been planning for this kind of scenario?" Marcus paused in his work and looked at her seriously. "Zara, I've been fighting pirates and raiders for over 20 years. I've seen what the Scarens do to their prisoners. We're not going to let that happen to these people." Something in his tone made her realize this was personal for him. But before she could ask more questions, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Marcus immediately activated a communicator that connected him to the Wanderer's systems. "Contact. 3 ships decloaking and approaching fast. Scaren raiders, just as we predicted." Marcus's voice carried throughout the ship as he activated the emergency communication system. "Attention passengers and crew of the Celestial Dream. I'm Captain Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Force. We have confirmed hostile forces approaching this ship. Do not panic. We are prepared for this situation." Zara watched in amazement as the frightened civilians began to organize under Marcus's calm directions. The temporary shield generators he had installed were powering up, creating protective barriers around the most vulnerable areas of the ship. The potential defenders she had identified were moving to positions Marcus had assigned them, armed with weapons from the Wanderer's emergency stockpiles. "The raiders will demand our surrender," Marcus continued his briefing. "They will threaten to destroy this ship if we resist. Do not believe them. They need the ship intact to transport prisoners to slave markets. We're going to use that against them." Through the liner's viewports, Zara could see the three Scaran ships approaching. They were sleek, predatory vessels painted in the dark colors that marked them as raiders rather than regular military units. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy the passenger liner several times over. "This is Raider Prime to disabled vessel," came the transmission in accented trade language. "Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with immediate execution of passengers." Marcus activated his response with a calm that seemed impossible under the circumstances. "This is Celestial Dream. We copy your transmission. We have wounded aboard and request medical assistance from your ships." Zara stared at him. "You're pretending we don't know they're hostile?" "I'm buying time. Watch the scanner." On the tactical display, Zara could see the Wanderer moving away from the liner, apparently fleeing the scene like a frightened civilian vessel. But the ship's true course was more subtle. Marcus was positioning his ship for what she realized would be a devastating surprise attack. "Surrender now, or we begin executing hostages," the Scaran commander transmitted. "We surrender," Marcus replied, his voice perfectly conveying defeated resignation. "Please don't hurt anyone." The Scaran ships moved closer, their commanders confident that they faced only helpless civilians. Zara could see their boarding craft launching, filled with raiders ready to take control of the liner and begin the process of sorting prisoners for the slave markets. That's when Marcus revealed his true nature to the galaxy. "Wanderer, execute Alpha Strike," he said quietly into his communicator. The Earth ship appeared on the scanner like an avenging angel, its weapons systems fully charged and targeting solutions already locked. The first Scaran raider disappeared in a brilliant explosion before its crew even realized they were under attack. The second ship managed to raise shields and return fire, but it was facing weapons designed specifically to penetrate raider defenses. Through the liner's communication system, Zara could hear Marcus coordinating not just the Wanderer's attack, but also the defensive positions throughout the Celestial Dream. He was fighting a space battle and a boarding action simultaneously, his voice never losing its calm authority, even as explosive bolts shook the ship around them. "Forward shields are holding. Kajathor, raiders coming through Section 7, you have 3 minutes to get your people in position. Dr. Mitchell, we have casualties on Deck 12. Commander Thex, I need you to reroute power to the forward deflectors." Zara found herself running through the corridors of the liner, coordinating between the various defensive teams and relaying information to Marcus. Her engineering knowledge proved invaluable as she helped optimize the ship's improvised defensive systems. The battle was fierce, but brief. The Scarans had expected to face helpless civilians, not a coordinated defense led by one of the galaxy's most experienced special operations officers. When the third raider ship attempted to retreat, the Wanderer pursued it relentlessly, ensuring that no survivors would return to report what they had encountered. In the aftermath, as rescue ships arrived and began the process of properly evacuating the Celestial Dream, Zara stood on the liner's bridge and watched Marcus coordinate the recovery efforts. He was in communication with Fleet Command, filing reports and arranging for the proper authorities to investigate the sabotage that had disabled the ship in the first place. "You're really him, aren't you?" she said when there was finally a quiet moment. Marcus looked at her questioningly. "Marcus Chen, the ghost of Kepler Station, the human who held off an entire Torvan fleet for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. the officer who developed half the anti-piracy tactics used by every civilized species in the galaxy. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Those are old stories, Zara. I've been retired for 3 years. But you came out of retirement to save these people. I couldn't let the Scarans take them. You saw how well our defense worked. These weren't soldiers or Marines, just ordinary beings who refused to give up without a fight. That's the kind of spirit that makes civilization possible. Zara looked out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. You knew who I was too, didn't you? From the beginning. Daughter of High Admiral Veltar, one of the most brilliant young engineers in the 8th Mari Dominion, currently rebelling against a life of privilege and looking for something real to believe in. Marcus smiled. It wasn't hard to figure out. Then why did you let me stay? Why didn't you send me back to the station? Marcus was quiet for a long time, then turned to look at her directly. Because I've been where you are, looking for something that matters, something worth dedicating your life to. And because when the shooting started, you didn't hesitate. You helped save those people. Zara felt something shift in her understanding of herself and what she wanted from life. The young Ethmari, who had been bored with diplomatic dinners and formal ceremonies, seemed like someone from another lifetime. In their place stood someone who had faced real danger and discovered she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. "What happens now?" she asked. Marcus checked his chrono and smiled. "Now we get these people safely to their destinations. Then we go back to Nexus 7 and you decide what you want to do with the rest of your life." "And what are my options?" "You can go back to your family and the life that was planned for you, or you can join me on the Wanderer. There's always more work to be done out here, more people who need help. It won't be safe, and it won't be easy, but it will definitely be real." Zara looked out at the stars again, feeling their call in a way she never had before. But there was still something about Marcus that didn't add up, something that nagged at the edge of her consciousness. "Marcus, if you're retired, why do you still have access to military equipment? Why does your ship have weapons that most governments would kill for?" Marcus's expression became serious again. "That's a conversation for another time, Zara. First, let's make sure everyone gets home safely. Then we can talk about secrets and the kinds of work that officially doesn't exist." As the rescue operation continued around them, Zara realized that her simple attraction to a mysterious older human had become something much more complex. She was falling for a legend, a man whose true story she was only beginning to understand, and she was beginning to suspect that even his revelation as a retired Earth Special Operations captain was only part of a much larger truth. 3 days after the rescue at the Celestial Dream, Zara stood in the observation lounge of Nexus 7, watching ships come and go from the massive station. The rescue had made galactic news, with reports praising the quick thinking of civilian vessels and the mysterious Earth ship that had driven off the Scaran raiders. None of the news reports mentioned Marcus by name, and she was beginning to understand that this was intentional. Her father's message had been waiting when they returned to the station. High Admiral Veltar was not pleased that his daughter had disappeared without her security detail and participated in what he called a reckless adventure. He was sending a diplomatic cruiser to collect her, and she was expected to be ready for immediate departure when it arrived. But Zara was no longer the same person who had slipped away from her escort 3 days ago. She had tasted real freedom, faced genuine danger, and discovered capabilities she never knew she possessed. The idea of returning to a life of predetermined choices and carefully managed experiences felt like a kind of death. "Thinking deep thoughts?" Marcus's voice came from behind her, warm and familiar. Zara turned to find him approaching with 2 cups of the earth coffee she had grown fond of during their time together. He looked like his old self again, the simple freight pilot in worn clothes and comfortable boots. But now she could see the deception for what it was. The way he moved, the constant awareness in his eyes, the subtle confidence that marked him as someone accustomed to command. It was all still there beneath the surface. "Thinking about choices," she said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "About the difference between a life that looks perfect from the outside and a life that feels real from the inside." Marcus nodded, settling into a chair beside her. "Your father's ship will be here tomorrow." "Yes, and he expects me to return with it." Zara took a sip of coffee and studied Marcus's face. "But before I decide what I'm going to do, I need to know the truth. All of it." "What makes you think you don't have the truth already?" Zara smiled. "Because retired special operations captains don't usually have access to experimental weapon systems. Because your ship carries technology that I've never seen before, even in the most classified Ethmari military projects. And because when you were coordinating the defense of the Celestial Dream, you weren't just acting like a former officer. You were acting like someone who still has active authority." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "What do you know about the Galactic Cooperation Treaty?" The question seemed to come from nowhere, but Zara answered thoughtfully. "It's the framework that governs relations between the major civilizations. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, mutual defense pacts. My father helped negotiate some of the military cooperation clauses." "What about the classified annexes? The parts that even high-ranking military officers don't usually see?" Zara felt a chill of anticipation. "I know they exist, but their contents are above my security clearance. Even my father has never discussed them with me." Marcus stood and moved to the observation window, looking out at the star field beyond. 25 years ago, the major galactic powers realized they had a problem. Pirates, raiders, slavers, and other criminals were becoming increasingly organized. They were using the gaps between different species' jurisdictions to avoid prosecution. A Scaran raider could attack a Vorthak ship in Kalari space, then flee to a system controlled by the Torvan Republic where none of the victim species had authority to pursue. "That's why the joint anti-piracy patrols were established," Zara said, remembering her diplomatic studies. "Those are the public face of the solution." But the real answer was more complex. The major powers created a secret organization, staffed by volunteers from every civilized species, with authority to pursue criminals across any border and take whatever action was necessary to protect innocent lives. Marcus turned back to face her, and Zara could see the weight of years in his expression. "It's called the Guardian Protocol. Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's the reason why piracy rates have dropped by 80% in the last 2 decades. Understanding dawned on Zara like a sunrise. "You're not retired. You're a guardian. I'm the Guardian Sector Commander for this region of space. The Wanderer isn't just disguised as a freight ship. She actually carries freight between missions. It's the perfect cover for moving through space without attracting attention." Zara felt her heart racing as more pieces fell into place. "That's why you knew about the Scaran raiders. That's why you had exactly the right equipment to defend the Celestial Dream. You were already tracking them." Marcus nodded. "We'd been hunting that particular raider pack for 6 months. They were responsible for the deaths of over 400 innocent beings. The attack on the Celestial Dream was going to be their last operation. And you let me stay with you knowing how dangerous it was going to be. I made a calculated risk. You proved me right." Marcus smiled. "Though I have to admit, having the daughter of High Admiral Veltar as a witness to our operations did complicate things politically." Zara laughed, understanding now why Marcus had seemed so calm throughout the crisis. "Because my father is one of the military commanders who knows about the Guardian Protocol. He's more than that. Veltar was one of the original architects of the program. He's the one who recommended me for Guardian service 20 years ago." The revelation hit Zara like a physical blow. "My father knows you. He's known you all along. We've worked together on dozens of operations over the years. When you disappeared from your security detail, he contacted me and asked me to keep an eye on you. He figured you were safer with a guardian than wandering around a space station alone. Zara stared at Marcus, trying to process the implications. So this whole thing was arranged? My meeting you? The rescue mission, everything? Marcus's expression became serious. Your meeting me was arranged. Your father wanted someone he trusted to watch over you while you worked through whatever was driving your rebellion. But everything that happened after that was real, Zara. The attraction between us, your decision to stay and help with the rescue, the way you performed under pressure, none of that was planned. Zara felt a mixture of emotions. Anger at the manipulation, admiration for her father's cleverness, and relief that her feelings for Marcus were genuine. And now? Now you have a choice to make. You can go home with your father's ship and resume the life that was planned for you, or you can join the Guardian Protocol and help protect the innocent beings of the galaxy. The offer hung in the air between them. Zara understood that this was about more than just choosing between two different lives. It was about choosing between safety and purpose, between comfort and meaning. What would that mean exactly? Joining the Guardians? Marcus moved closer, his expression intense but hopeful. It would mean training to use your engineering skills in new ways, learning to think like an operative instead of just a scientist, spending years traveling through the most dangerous parts of the galaxy, never knowing when the next crisis would arise. He paused, then continued more softly. It would also mean working alongside me. The Guardian Protocol doesn't have rules against personal relationships between operatives. In fact, they encourage them. Partners who care about each other fight harder to stay alive. Zara felt her breath catch. Are you asking me to join your mission or asking me to be with you? Both. I've been alone for a long time, Zara. Fighting the good fight, but always moving on before I could form real connections with anyone. Meeting you changed that. You're brilliant, brave, and you see the galaxy the way I do, as something worth protecting. Before Zara could respond, a chime indicated an incoming message. Marcus checked his communicator and frowned. Priority signal from Guardian Command. We have another situation developing. He activated the communication system, and a holographic display showed a star map with a red warning indicator pulsing in a system 3 days away. The briefing was concise and urgent. A research station had gone silent, and long-range scans suggested it had been attacked by unknown forces. The station was conducting classified research on new energy technologies, and its capture could shift the balance of power in several ongoing conflicts. Time frame? Marcus asked the unseen operator. Immediate deployment required. Other Guardian units are too far away to respond in time. You're the only asset in position to investigate. Marcus looked at Zara, and she could see the internal conflict in his eyes. He wanted to ask her to come with him, but he also understood that this was exactly the kind of dangerous situation that she would face as a Guardian. Zara made her decision. Wanderer Control. This is Guardian trainee Zara Lynn requesting permission to accompany this mission as an observer. Marcus stared at her in amazement. The communication operator was quiet for a moment, then responded, Guardian trainee Zara Lynn, please confirm your authorization codes. Zara smiled and recited a series of numbers and letters that she had memorized years ago, but never understood the purpose of until now. They were emergency codes that her father had made her learn, supposedly for diplomatic emergencies. Now she realized they were Guardian Protocol identification codes, given to her in case she ever needed to contact the organization directly. Codes confirmed. Welcome to Guardian Service, trainee Zara Lynn. You are authorized for observer status under the direct supervision of Sector Commander Chen. As the communication ended, Zara found herself in Marcus's arms. his surprise and joy evident in the way he held her. "Do you understand what you just did?" he asked. "I just chose the life I want to live instead of the life that was planned for me," she replied. "I chose to be with the man I'm falling in love with, and I chose to spend my life protecting people who can't protect themselves." Marcus pulled back to look at her seriously. "It won't always be as clean as the rescue at the Celestial Dream. Sometimes we'll have to make hard choices. Sometimes people will die despite our best efforts." "I know, but at least they'll die knowing that someone cared enough to try." An hour later, the Wanderer undocked from Nexus 7 and jumped into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward another crisis in the endless galaxy. But this time, Marcus wasn't alone. Beside him sat a young Ethmari woman who had chosen love and purpose over safety and privilege. As they traveled through the swirling colors of hyperspace, Zara thought about the message she had sent to her father. She had explained her decision to join the Guardian Protocol, her feelings for Marcus, and her gratitude for his subtle guidance in bringing them together. She had also promised to make him proud of the daughter who had finally found her true calling among the stars. The research station they were rushing to investigate might be destroyed, its scientists captured or killed, its secrets stolen by hostile forces. But Zara no longer felt the helpless frustration she had lived with for so long. Now she was part of the solution, part of the thin line that stood between innocent beings and the darkness that threatened them. Marcus reached over and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "No regrets?" Zara looked out at the stars streaming past and smiled. "Only that it took me so long to find my way here." The young star-born woman who had desired an old man without knowing his true nature had discovered something far more valuable than romance. She had found her purpose, her partner, and her place in the vast galaxy. The truth about Marcus Chen, Guardian, Legend, and the man who had seen through all her pretenses to the person she could become, was exactly what she had been searching for all along. In the depths of space, carrying hope to beings in desperate need of rescue, Zara finally understood what it meant to live a life that was truly her own. And beside her, the man who had spent years protecting the galaxy had found someone worth sharing that mission with. The stars called to them, full of danger and possibility, and together they answered that call with hearts that beat as one. Whatever challenges awaited them at the research station or in the years beyond, they would face them as partners in every sense of the word, two beings who had found in each other the missing piece that made them complete. The galaxy was vast and often dark, but it was also full of light for those brave enough to seek it. And in the cockpit of the Wanderer, racing through hyperspace toward their destiny, that light shone brighter than any star.